Hello, everyone, and welcome to a new episode of Wind Waker Unflooded. Kind of. I am your host, Joe, and usually on this channel, I work on a 3D modeling fan art project where I'm reimagining Hyrule in the style of the Wind Waker, kind of what it could have been. Um, and I've realized that it's been so long since I played Wind Waker, and so I've been replaying the game to refamiliarize myself with its world, so that I can just like make informed, creative decisions, make sure that I'm on top of the lore, make sure that I'm just like that I'm not missing anything because there are things that I realize that I've been forgetting here and there. Um, Down to the names of islands, which is embarrassing. I grew up with this game. I love this game. Part of the reason I do this fan project is because I cherish it so much, and just I felt aware that like I've just needed to refresh my memory and go back to it because it's been long enough that just I haven't been keeping all of the lore in my head all at once, and so it's been really fun just to revisit the game, refamiliarize myself with the aesthetics too. There's something just about the conventions of texture mapping in the game and the way that it approaches certain things that's been really nice just to play the game and kind of just have a reason to kind of study it in the background as I'm playing. Because Wind Waker, I think, is a really forgiving art style. Like I think it's really accessible for 3D artists, and I wasn't sure that it would be that way before I started my project. And it's just been so encouraging to work on my project and play the game and kind of realize, I still feel like a beginner 3D modeler, and yet I still feel like I can, relatively do justice to this art style. Um, Now I do think there's so many things that the original Wind Waker models do, um, with the models with their textures that's like, oh, that's so high level, right? But I also feel like it's accessible for um, artists that want to get into its art style. You know, the bar of entry is not terribly high. It's not trying to be realistic or something that would really hold it back. Um, I just think that that's really cool. It does a lot with very simple shapes and textures. And using the same textures a lot, right? It doesn't feel the need to say like, hey, like, oh no, like every wall has to be this new thing, and yet like these environments still feel so unique. And like this room is like, are there any new assets in this room, for instance? Um, Not necessarily, but yeah, like just every part of the space feels like unique. Um, I don't know. I think part of that is the design, right? It's not just models and textures, it's the design. There's just so many things that go into good design. I do think this is interesting. The room that we're in, this is one of the few spaces where you can notice like seams in between textures. Because usually, like, they do a really good job of like, you see how there's this kind of like bordering image with they're not like glyphs, but they're kind of like that glyph going like around. It's like a banner, and that separates two textures, right, and helps transition between the two ideas. But then the floor of the wall, there's like kind of it looks like it's almost at a crease in the wall texture, but it's not quite lining up. But like it doesn't matter, like it like that's fine. But it's just usually it's like Wind Waker does such a good job of like you can see in this texture like um, there's edges to the texture, right? There's like these dark edges, and it's UV mapped basically so the edges line up with the edges of the geometry. Um, and I think it's interesting when they choose to make that line up, which they often do, and when they choose to not worry about it. I don't know. I think it's interesting because like I feel aware that sometimes I worry about that, right? And like grass goes into paths, right? Um, and grass also goes into. Do I get any rewards for killing all these guys? I don't know. I might as well, right? I don't know. Like, is there a chest that appears? Oh man. Um, I don't know, but I could use the jelly. I'll take the jelly. I just didn't know if there was anything that appeared. It doesn't look so. It doesn't look like there is. Um, I have one more crate. I'm not sure if I can get that last thing. I forget what's in that last one. I hope it's worth it. I hope there's a chest in there, like a sea chart or something. We'll find out. We will find out. But yeah, I mean, just like it's I don't know. I love the art style of the Wind Waker. I think it's one of the most beautiful video games ever created. Not just Zelda art styles, right? But like it holds up, right? Like this is over 20 years old, and it's like this could come out this year and be fine, right? Like maybe it wouldn't be a AAA title, right? Um, but like I don't know, like Nintendo could make a game that looked like this that could come out this year, and like that wouldn't people wouldn't really bat an eye. Maybe they'd be like, oh, the textures aren't super high res, right? But that would be kind of the only thing, right? The geometry is like relatively low poly, but that's like an artistic decision, um, kind of as much as anything, right? Let's see. I do think this is interesting because the water is opaque, even though when it rises in these rooms, there's like the rooms are fully modeled. Um, I gotta be better. My timing is just off. Every Zelda game is different with its bomb timing, and I get used to one game. I'm gonna make excuses for why I'm bad. If you're okay with that. Oh, this is interesting. You can see that there's an inset in the geometry of the crate, so Link is actually not standing on the surface directly. I've never noticed that. I should have been pointing the right way. I screwed that up. Come on, I get why this is a bonus. I gotta be better. Come on. No, I've lost my crate. I don't know if I can do this actually without the crate. I'm getting out of here. Sorry y'all had to see that. Let's go. Let's get out of here. I'm sorry. I'm embarrassed. Let's go. Let's this way, I think. Yeah. Perchance. Perchance. Oh man, I love the aesthetics of this too, and it's so like just ominous, right? Like, and I don't know. It's like I think that's an intentional decision. Like you're not just, come on, come on. I hate this dungeon. I'm kidding. Just right out the gate, just like waiting on the water levels. Ugh. That's the only thing, right? Is like in Zelda games about with dungeons about like changing water levels. Usually it's like a puzzle that like you control the water level, so you can figure out like how to get from A to B. This is just waiting on the water level, which is easier. That does create challenges, and I think like I don't know. I think there are several rooms where the changing water level is an active puzzle. When you actually get in the rooms, like these, I'm like, oh, like I have to be quick, and it's a challenge just to be quick. And I guess that's true for the hub room as well. It's just, you're not actively doing anything really besides moving while you're waiting for the water. It's like I don't want to. Yeah, I want to wait for the water to go down before I drop in. I don't know. Like I guess like that is a little bit of a puzzle. Um, but like I prefer it in these rooms where it's like I have to be very intentional and quick when I'm acting, so that I'm not wasting time. Right? I can't dilly dally. Go in, drop the thing on the thing, the bridge appears, and then I skedaddle. It's efficiency, and I appreciate that. Like I really appreciate that, and yeah, like I guess like I do appreciate that. I don't think it's just waiting. And I think waiting can be intentional and part of the puzzle. But in the hub room, it's a little more annoying because if you don't get somewhere in time, you're like, well, there's nothing I can actively do. And here, it's like I'm waiting for the, I'm not really active in between, um, when the water is up. But when the water's down, it's like I think it's okay because when the water is down, that's when I do have to like get up and go. Um, so I don't know. Like I think that works. Let's put this thing like in this thing. And so begins our first statue guided to a new place. I think Wind Waker is the first Zelda game to have like Zelda puzzle motifs, right, in dungeons. Um, the idea that like a dungeon is kind of about something in particular. Um, I mean, there's Ocarina of Time dungeons that I think get close to that, and like kind of about teaching certain things. And I guess like there are puzzle motifs in Ocarina of Time, but I think Wind Waker like really, I feel like blew it out of the water with that. I love Ocarina of Time's dungeons. I think they're great dungeons. I think they're a great set, and I think like they're more difficult than Wind Waker's dungeon, and that goes a long way. Like when I replay Ocarina of Time, there are dungeons that I still have to be actively thinking about. In Wind Waker, it's like it's just like the way the dungeons are designed. It's like it's usually not this puzzle to unravel. There may be individual puzzles that's like okay, like I have to focus as I'm doing this. But for experienced players, it's not quite as engaging, or it's engaging, but it's not like the puzzle solving isn't engaging. You still have to be like aware of your surroundings and engage with the mechanics and be attentive as you play, which is still rewarding for returning players. But that doesn't mean that the act of like solving the puzzle is always, there's a point where you've solved the puzzle once, and the dungeon just kind of leads you through itself overall. Um, and like I don't know, like I don't think that's a bad thing. I know people that have critiqued the dungeons of this game for being too easy to navigate, right? That's just such an important aspect, like the idea that you should be able to get lost in a dungeon and find your way and that be difficult, right? Because there are great Zelda games in the past that like really benefit from that kind of philosophy, right? I think it's okay that this game has other things to offer though. Like, like it may not have super challenging dungeons that are, super hard to navigate, but it is able to I don't know, like still be interesting, still be fun, still be engaging. I guess that's the thing is like engagement. I feel like is the goal, right? And that doesn't have to be, um, you know, like I don't know, like that doesn't just mean are there hard puzzles. Like I'm still engaged by this game even when I replay it. Um, so I don't know, because I guess like what is I don't want to get pretentious or snobby, but like if we talk about like what a good game is and what makes me want to go back to play a game, I think engagement is a part of that. And with that comes fun. With that comes, does it promote a flow state, right? Like that's part of it. Um, is it intrinsically like fun to play? Like I think that's part of a good game. Um, I don't know. Intrinsic and extrinsic motivation is a whole thing we can talk about. Maybe not on this episode. Maybe on this episode. I don't know. Let's talk about game design. And like I don't know much about like game design. Like just like from what I understand as a player. Um, and I guess like I do think like if you can be like a good audience member, I think part of that is being able to be a critic and talk about the design of things. That doesn't mean that you're like a designer, but it does mean that like you can have opinions and and like talk about those. Let's see. Can I make it? Oh, come on. Oh, I knew it was rigged. I knew I shouldn't have tried. Come on. Okay, okay. Ooh, that was close. Y'all saw that how close that was. Let's get out of here. Let's go. Let's go. Let's book it. Um, but yeah, like I do think like it's valid for people to critique things even if they don't make the things themselves. It's like I think we can all critique movies even if we're not filmmakers. Now I am a filmmaker. I'm an indie filmmaker, and if y'all are interested in watching my films, go to my main channel. I'm sure if I don't have a link in the description, I have a link on my channel page. Um, Scroll down and click it. But yeah, like I do I do make films. But like it's not like I wouldn't be able to critique it if I didn't, right? Like I think it's okay that like as an audience member you can want good art, and it's okay just to say like like I may not be a creator myself or a creator of this thing, but I can still talk about like the fact that like I think this is good, or you know I think this is engaging, or like this interests me or not. Like those are still valid criticisms. So I do kind of reject this idea of like, well, I shouldn't criticize it because I don't know what goes into making it. That may make it harder to criticize, right? Because it's not necessarily super informed criticism. Um, and I do think it's beneficial for criticism to be informed. I feel like this is all very snobby. I don't feel like a snob. Like I feel like I'm very forgiving and easygoing on media as I criticize it. And usually it's just like if I have a good time, I have a good time. And I'm not going to be like, okay, well, like I had fun, but like, was this high art? Like I don't know. Like I do have like respect for high art, and obviously like that's like I want art to be good, but I'm also like I don't feel super snobby when I talk about all this stuff. Here I am playing Wind Waker, this game that is like, I mean, I do think it's high art, but it's also like it was a game made for kids and it's a cartoon, right? And I don't feel the need to like I think it takes itself super seriously, and I think the artist took it really seriously and made a masterpiece. Um, but like I don't know. It's like is this maybe this is a bad example because like this is like a really good piece of art. I don't know. I was like, well, here I am playing a kids game. Maybe that's not a great argument, just because like I do think this is a beautiful game, not just aesthetically, but just in everything it has to express. And I do think it is a deep piece of art that is meaningful, of course. So I don't know. I'm not gonna use Wind Waker as an example of well, like it's just meaningless fun because that's not what it is. Actually, it's actually much more than that. And just everything that it has to say with its themes, man. Like, I think that's the thing is that like I keep coming back to Wind Waker, um, just because like it always impresses me. It just like whenever I replay it, it's like it never loses its luster. Um, and there are games that do. There's games where I'm like, oh, that was great on a first playthrough, but now I'm replaying it, and there's things that just don't work as much. Um, I've been playing through the Arkham games recently with the Arkham trilogy on the Switch, which I really recommend. I've really loved those games. Um, but there are things in replaying that make certain things challenging. I've been playing on hard mode for my second playthrough. I think that's been really rewarding and has been really challenging. But then there's times where it's like, well, like the novelty of a certain combat scenario, kind of wears off after a certain point. And those games are like kind of fundamentally about combat scenarios, right? It's not just like a hack and slash, right? Like I think there are puzzles in the way it introduces combat, and I think it's really smart and engaging, and like you know, like there's puzzle solving in like figuring out how to take down enemies, and I think that that's so cool. Um, but like it's also I feel like the water just went up. Am I tripping? Did it just go up just to go right back down? I feel like I'm tripping. Am I tripping? This is I love the atmosphere in this too. Like I don't know how many Wind Waker rooms use that. Maybe all the dungeons in some way have some kind of like atmosphere culling out, which is an artistic decision. I don't think they had to do that for loading, right? Like, like I think Kokiri Forest. My understanding is that that was a technical limitation, the fog that it has. Maybe it's not. Maybe it could have loaded the whole map, like visually at once. But like there is a limit on like characters disappear, right? And I think that's also a technical limitation. Um, like they're not just popping in and out, but it's like they fade into um, the like they fade into the forest, which I think is really cool. This idea that they're kind of spirits in a way. Um, I don't know. I need to like reassess that before I just talk nonsense. But like I don't know. My understanding is that that was a technical limitation. Maybe it's not. Maybe that was just artistic. Um, let's see. I need the statues before I do anything. Um, let's wait. I do like this room. This is interesting because it uses the textures to help clue you in on the Beamos's range, right? Because if you stand here, it's not going to get you. And that's something that's just like, I mean, they didn't have to give you a line, but it's like the geometry of the room helps create that border, which I think is interesting. Um, just the design of the space implies the range of. Hey, come on, man! I was using that. Implies the range of the Beamos's attacks. I think that's cool. Like, I mean, you see this difference in like the textures. I thought I was gonna get a ruby or something, but like, there's a difference in the textures on the ground. Um, I just think that's cool. How like, it's game design plus the artistic environmental design. It all goes together, right? And I think that's the thing just about these Zelda spaces is like, are they gameplay first? I think in many ways, yeah. But they also tend to have just such really well designed environments that it's like, well, this feels like it could have just been like, made outside of a game. Um, or outside of the need to be a game, right? Like it's just like a really interesting space. Um, so I don't know. I think it's interesting, but like it is like all designed for gameplay. Let's go this way. Let's check this way out. I do feel reassured. There's these pillars here are super low poly and just based on extruding a cube, right? It's like I know how you would model this. Like you take a cube, you extrude it up, extrude it out, extrude it a couple different ways, and like this would take like a couple seconds to model. And I've made some models like this, and I felt kind of guilty in Wind Waker Unflooded doing models like this, but so it's kind of nice to go in the game and go like, I know that this is would be super easy to model. Now the textures are nice, right? And that adds a nice kind of dimensionality to it. And so like I like those pillars, but it's just the kind of thing that like I would feel bad about. Like, was this too easy to make? So it's kind of nice to see something like that in the game and go, okay, because I forget about that. Like that's part of why I'm playing it. And now obviously it's like over here it's the same asset being used here, but now there are heads on top, and that is the heads are a little more complex. I mean they're relatively low poly, but they're a little more complex than just the kind of rhombuses like at the top of those. I think it's the same asset, but that's interesting. Interesting. This is another example of like the hard cutoff between textures that is rarely seen in the game. Like usually everything kind of transitions into each other, right? Like you look at the floor, um, which is like the bottom of the wall has part of the floor texture, at least in color, right? Like it's kind of like you can see that there's splotches of floor going into it, and then like the colors match really nicely going from that part of the wall to that one to the top. So it's rare that there's just like a direct like um, this kind of like there's no blending in between these textures. And I don't think that's a bad thing. I guess I'm just saying that usually so much of this game does that. So it's kind of unique to see when it doesn't. And I think it's fine that it doesn't. Um, I want to say it's fine that it doesn't because it's hard to make textures like, find the make them seamless every time, right? A lot of Wind Waker textures are made to like work like that and work with other textures. But then some of them it's like, well, I don't, you don't feel the need to have to do that all the time with your environments. Seeker of the goddess's guidepost, press R to call me and guide me to my place of truth. Hey, yo. I like that because, yeah, you can tell. I wonder. I mean, I'm sure that people could already go ahead and translate this just based on this image alone. But right, like it says R, it probably says what the text says. Um, that's really cool. That's just cool stuff. Anyway, let's call him. Wind Waker's just such a cool game, man. I like this game. Have I said that before? How much I like this game? All right, follow me, buddy. Join me. And like I don't know, like this is a good example of like I've been engaged through all these puzzles while playing this dungeon. Even though this is a dungeon I've played so many times, but like even replaying it, um, it's like I have to be intentional. Like I can't just rush to the end of a room and go, yeah, I know this puzzle. Boom, 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 boom. I have to like be very intentful on, like I don't know. I like this room, like, and it's simple and it's easy, but your first step in just guiding someone, and you have to make sure that they're following you, and you just have to like be aware of the fact that like you're not alone anymore, which I think is a great like um, start to, of course, like that's developed in further dungeons when you have to guide other characters, right? And I love that theme, right? And I think it makes sense to start with a statue. And I guess like there's a theme throughout the gameplay of the game. There's so many themes in the story, and we've talked to death about the themes in the story, but there's a gameplay theme of collaboration, um, and how you know, like how you play with other characters. I think that's really cool. Ooh. Because of course it starts with rescuing characters. You're on, you're on a mission to save your sister, and that leads you into saving Medley, saving Makar. Those are characters that are actively a part of the dungeon that you have to, find and rescue at the end of the dungeon. Um, and here it's like, all right, like there's no one that we're directly rescuing besides like the greater mission to save your sister, but we are, leading characters, um, like around the dungeon with these statues. Come on, man. Do I have to get closer? Okay. Excuse me. Ooh. Oh. Excuse me, my voice is a little hoarse. I think it's just because it's the morning. I'm recording this in the morning. Good morning, everyone. I don't know. I usually release videos in the morning as well. I don't know if y'all are all morning people, and I know that there's a lot of time zone differences as well. I love that. I love that the viewership, um, I feel like is diverse. Like I don't know. Like I'm an American, and I always assume that, like I do think YouTube and the internet is sometimes like segregates itself, right? And it's like American creators will be advertised to American audiences. Um, and I don't know. I think it's just cool that like Zelda is a global franchise with fans all over the world. And I love that Wind Waker Unflooded, like there's been people um, supporting the project and commenting from all over the world, and I just think that's awesome. And I thank you just to everyone watching for watching the channel. And I don't know. I apologize. There haven't been modeling videos in a while. Um, just because of I've explained this before in a video. If you want to know why I haven't like posted a modeling video in a while, check my I did like a YouTube apology style video where I was like, guys, I'm sorry, it's time to apologize. It was just explaining that like we've been organizing the textures for the project and renaming them and categorizing them so that the project is easier to manage. And just like I think it makes sense. A contributor's been working on that, and I think it makes sense to let them finish before I model anymore. So the project's not going anywhere. I'm still super excited to get back into it. I'm really inspired by this project, and like I've kind of been like itching to get back into it, and I know that y'all are itching to see more. So I don't know. Like I do apologize that like y'all subscribed for the modeling videos, and there haven't been modeling videos in a while. But I don't know. Like I've still appreciated that we have this little community here, and that like even if the channel is doing new things, and there's new podcast episodes, and there's new gameplay videos. Um, I guess I want y'all to know that like I'm not changing the channel forever. The project will resume. It's just there's just technical challenges that we're gonna overcome first. This is cool because this is the first dungeon that's gonna be. I think it's the first dungeon that's spread out between two videos. Um, I'm getting. I'm not sure exactly when I'm gonna wrap this up. Um, I don't know if I'm gonna be able to like beat this like I level is a gameplay term, but level is in like the like get to the next part of the dungeon, right? Because this is all on a how do I put this? Like this dungeon is a tower. It's the Tower of the Gods. So it is about like ascending levels, right? Like it is about like right like elevation. So that's what I mean. Like I don't know if I'm gonna get to the next like part of the tower. Um, so I don't know. Maybe I'll stop at this room. Okay, I'm really glad he didn't knock me off the rope. I wasn't sure if it was just gonna hurt me or knock me off the rope. I was really scared. I have weapons I could have used. Like I could have stunned him with the boomerang, um, but there's not really a way to defeat him yet. I wonder if there's a new item I'm gonna get that will change that. Like a long range like weapon, a long range weapon. How about this? Let's see what's behind this door in the next video. Everyone, thank you all so much for watching. As always, just yeah, like I just appreciate how many people watch these videos. I really thought it would get like 50 views each, and it's a little bit more than that. So I appreciate just everyone who's been along for the ride. More to come. So I will see y'all in the next video. Peace.